As a keen student of human behavior, I've been fascinated by watching people over the years. And one of the things that fascinates me the most about us as a species is that we seem to be hardwired to disagree with each other. You know, whether it's the social taboos of religion or politics, every one of us has an opinion that we seem to defend. Yet I think one of the things we can all agree on is that we're living in a time in human history that is absolutely unprecedented. A time that not even our ancestors could have dreamed about in their wildest dreams. I mean, think about that. How many of our ancestors looked up at a cloud and wondered what it would be like to see life from the other side? What would the pharaohs of Egypt given 5,000 years ago to be able to step onto a machine and be the other side of the world in hours? Wow, kingdoms. Yet the reality is, for many of our ancestors, they gave a precious gift. Childbirth wasn't certain for many, many years. In fact, my grandmother on my mother's side actually died in childbirth, giving birth to my mother. It was a very uncertain time. And if you could just connect for a second to the fact that some of our ancestors gave their life in agony so that we could be standing here today. The question that poses, my friends, is this: what do we do with the gift that we got? Now, some of us would say quite a lot. Some of us would say we're living in a time now where technology is so overwhelming, so incredible, that even just 20, 30 years ago, we couldn't have imagined the world that we live in today. But that technology comes at a price. It generates its own level of paradox. One of the paradoxes is that right now, there's so much information that's out there that we are literally overwhelmed, and the emotional route tends to be overwhelmed, which leads to confusion, which leads to inaction. In other words, we learn so much, we do nothing. For every 1 second that YouTube is up right now, there's between 5 and 10 hours of new content uploaded. Unbelievable. The other paradox that technology has brought is that in a world of 7+ billion people, we're all just a push notification away from each other. Interconnectivity is at a time that we've never even had the foresight in history to ever even dream of. Yet in a world that is so connected at every single level, why is it that so many of us feel so alone? The evidence of this is everywhere. Labels of ADD, ADHD with information overload, or prescription drugs for depression at an all-time high. And one of the reasons for that is so many people, I believe, are drowning in technology, but they're starving for something more. What are they starving for? Well, I believe that the ultimate app that you can download from the App Store these days is not Facebook. It's not LinkedIn. It's none of the myriad of millions of different apps with billions of downloads. The ultimate app comes down to love. Love, such an old-fashioned notion. Why do so many people have such an aversion to understanding what unconditional love is? Well, I looked at that. And it really comes down to understanding what our first and earliest memory is. If we go back 9 months before we were born, a certain event happened, which unleashed one of the biggest battles in human evolution, in human history, the battle to be here. 400 million to 1, and guess what? You show up. In a battle that was in the dark and uphill. Why did you want to be here so badly? Not only that, but if you look under the microscope and see what actually goes on, it's not just the first person that was there, is it? One of them is actually chosen. Yes, my friends, you were chosen to be here. But the challenge is once we're born, we can't do anything wrong. We throw up on mum at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's inconvenient, but we still get love. But something happens round about 18 months old where the parents suddenly realize there's a communication issue, and now it's going 2 ways. And at that moment, a lot of the parents impose their model of the world on how to bring up a child because nobody wants to be a bad parent. But the challenge with that is this, that what we do is we then say if the child behaves in a certain way, we reward that with positive reinforcement, and if they behave in a different way, the perception of the child, regardless of the reality, is that we then withdraw love. And that creates frustration. It creates frustration, but it also creates the perception that love needs to be earned. So by the time we get our earliest memory, at about 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, we've already had almost a lifetime of learning that love is conditional. We have to earn it. We have to behave a certain way in order to be good enough to be worthy of the one thing that we most want. Wow. And we then live the rest of our life projecting that into our lives and our relationships and wonder why nobody can figure out how to download what I call the ultimate app of love.